Right, what's going on, you guys? It's your boy Three Stiggity Stacks in this thing, baby, representing TKOG. And today, you guys, I'm gonna be showing off some Flundereeze. So this is another one of the new decks that are coming out in Bode. This one in Swordso definitely gonna shake some things up. Both these decks are gonna change the meta, just in the sense they're gonna change what people have to start side decking now, and people are gonna start main decking certain tech cards to beat these decks because these decks are just as good as Try and Drytrons and Print Kids and D-Link and Virtual World. So we're going to have a really healthy format, in my opinion, just because we're going to have so many different decks just running around. And diversity to me is just correlates to healthy because you don't have the same deck just beating everybody. There's just so many options and what people can play, so many engines and tech cards. Really looking forward to the new format. And here is my list. I know it's 43, so this is probably just going to hurt people's feelings just seeing that it's 43. But I have my reasons. I built the deck to be able to play through hand traps a lot better because that's the deck's like hugest drawback, that it can lose to a single Imperm or Veiler. It really sucks that that happens. It could die to even a single Ash sometimes, which, it's just very unfortunate. This deck is pretty cray-cray with the normal summons. It ends on some very solid boards. I like the mid-range playstyle. I like that Sword Soul and this deck are both mid-range. They're just very good control decks that can go second almost just as good as they can go first. They're really good at what they do. This deck has a better grind game than Sword Soul, a better recursion and follow-up. Everything's really systematic with this deck, and once you get it going, it's just really hard to stop it because, oh man, the follow-ups with this deck are pretty crazy. Like, this deck is very OP. I do believe that if this deck could play through hand traps a little bit better, that it would be better than Sword Soul. But because Sword Soul, I think, is more consistent and also able to play through more, that people, and it just looks more fun. This is like almost like a borderline, like a True Draco deck, So this isn't gonna be for everybody. Sword Soul looks more fun as well. But with all that said, if you guys haven't done so already, if you like my channel and you like the content I made, please leave a like for this video and subscribe if you haven't done so already. I would greatly appreciate that. Leave a dislike if you don't like it, and let me know how I did in the comment section down below. If you would like to support my channel, please consider backing me on Patreon or becoming a member of my Discord. With all that said, let's get started. So, for starters, I ain't gonna lie, I know it says Sword Soul is more consistent, but this deck is still consistent. We've got 3 Prosperity. You don't give a jack squat about your extra deck. Most of the time, you can't even use it. We've got 3 copies of Duality, and I say this a lot, but I'll say it again. This is also a going second card. Prosperity for 6 lets you see your side deck. It lets you hit cards like Book of Moon, Imperms, Crossouts, Call By, stuff like Terraforming, Mystic Mind, the Dear Servants, cards that are relative to outing boards. So this is a going second and a going first card. And the same thing with Duality. This is a going first and a going second card. These are very powerful starters. These allow you to see any card in your deck virtually. They're very good. You do not special summon. Sometimes you do, and on those occasions, you're normally going into a rank 1 into a Zeus, but most of the time, like 89% of the time, you do not special summon with this deck. And then, continuing on, we have 3 copies of Flundereeze and the Mysterious Map. This card is one of the ways that you are able to push through hand traps. This card is busted, you guys. This card is very busted. It also has another effect that kicks in on your opponent's turn. We're going to go down to that real quick. Oh yeah, let me read these cards for people that are kind of new. So, I should have started with that. The Flundereeze archetype, the way it works is it stacks its normal summons, and it essentially works around tribute summon boss monsters. So it's very much so a main deck focused archetype that centers around utilizing its boss monsters to disrupt your opponent and hold them at bay, and has a very good follow-up system that works off of your normal summons, tailoring off of your banish zone, so all of your level 1 guys actually get banished when they leave the field, and then when you normal summon one of your guys, they also return themselves from the banish zone to your hand. So this archetype is very cool, and what the map does, I'll go ahead and read some of these cards for those of you who are new to it. But this does let you play through hand traps really well. So during your main phase, you can reveal a level 1 Flundereeze monster in your hand. If you do, you banish a Flundereeze card with a different name from your deck. That's relevant that it's a card because actually Toucan lets you add a banished Flundereeze card, not just a monster, any Flundereeze card. So in theory, you could use this to banish even one of your spells or traps and then add them off Toucan. But more often than not, you banish one of your level 1s. But this card map is very good. So you banish those. Immediately after this effect resolves, you normal summon the revealed monster. If your opponent normal summons a monster, immediately after this effect resolves, normal a Flundereeze. That is, like, this in tandem with the trap give you so much disruption in your opponent's turn, because you could summon cards like Ryza, Avion, and even the Barrier Statue of the Storm Winds, and you already are ending on Impin, so it's normally just too much for your opponent to deal with. It's way too much. It's amazing that you can win games just by tribute summoning monsters. But yeah, Map is a phenomenal standalone card. I also play Terraforming to up the consistency of the deck, make me able to play through more, and this is also going second card because I do main deck 1 copy of Mystic Mine. And then I'm on 3 Nadirs. In your follow-ups, Nadir is essentially a +2 in the terms of adding one of your Flunders and also still searching the Ecclesia. This could be swapped for Dimension Shifter, but because I'm anticipating that this deck is going to be a really big looming threat, I feel that Dimension Shifter is going to be better in the side deck, tailored to the matchup that you know that it's going to be dominating in. So I'd rather side deck the Shifter against decks that I know it's going to work against. Even though Shifter is pretty much good against every deck that's not this one, I feel that Nadir gives me another power spell for going second to break boards. Even in the mirror match, this is going to be really good. And also, it just gives me another starter so I can still do something just in case I don't open well in the turns of my Flunder cards. Then I'm playing 3 Rabina. Rabina adds your level 4 lowers. And don't forget, when they leave the field, they do get banished. And that's relevant because you want them banished. Sometimes you will actually want to leave. Like, you can add both. Like, let's say you have a couple birds in your banish zone. You could add them when you normal summon. But sometimes you will want to leave one and your banish zone, because when you make plays on your opponent's turn, you will be able to chain block and protect those plays through this certain disruption. So Rabina adds level 4 or lowers, and Eaglin adds level 7 or higher, and then they all add themselves back from the banish zone when you summon something, when you normal one of your guys. Ecclesia is like another starter. You don't special summon her, you just normal her. More often than not, you just use Nadir for its actual effect to dump, then you are worried about Ecclesia and summoning and searching, unless you don't have any other plays going for yourself. Then I do play Gold Sarcophagus. Gold Sarc is not really a starter. It's more like an extender because it allows you to chain block, get access to, let's say, like you open Eaglin. Eaglin doesn't do that much by itself, but if you open Eaglin with Gold Sarc, now we're talking, because Eaglin into a Robina is a very, very solid play as well. And then something I have been debating on is playing 2 Toucans, because this card's pretty phenomenal. Toucan is very, very good. I'm really, like I said, I'm debating on playing 2. Toucan's really, really good. And then I play 1 Stritch. Stritch is like a flex, but I still think you should play it. Just for the simple fact that it lets you disrupt your opponent's graveyard, or even banishing from your own graveyard, which can set you up for certain plays. And then I play 1 copy of Impin. The reason why I can get away with 1 Impin is because A, you can banish it. Remember that Stritch can banish from either player's grave, right? That's why I said it was relevant, because you can banish it and then recur it from your banished zone back to your hand. And B, Cypher and Little Mega through the Dogmatica cards allows you to recycle this as well. So that way I don't have to play so many bricks, because the high levels ideally are the bricks. Not ideally. These are like, the high levels are pretty much your bricks. These are the cards you never really want to draw. You search these and summon them when you desire to. And Impin is kind of like a Nightmare Griffin. It prevents special summon monsters and attack from being able to activate their effects. And then we're going to go down to his damage step effect, or his battling effect. This one is also really cool. Let's pull this one up real quick if the computer works with me here. This is getting so annoying. Okay, there we go. So, blah, 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 blah. We're going to skip that part where he's a floodgate. And we're going to go to the part where your opponent thinks they're going to summon something big and beat over him. So, Once per battle, if this card battles an opponent's monster during damage calculation, quick effect, banish one card from your hand. That opponent's monster's attack and defense become half. So this card cannot be beaten by certain cards that normally would beat it. So stuff like Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, other beat 6 like that can't just out this card naturally. But at the same time, they could just summon it in defense and try to book this card. And that's why Impin by himself is not strong enough, because people could summon Chi Shao in defense to negate this. People can summon Dragoon, or not like off of Verde, but they could summon Dragoon off of Red Ice Fusion in defense and just pop this. But this deck, this card virtually does not let people activate Link Monster's effects. But ideally, you want this card to be protected, because this is the card that people are going to do the most work to get over more often than not. So you are going to use cards like Ryza, the Stormwinds, and also Avian to protect Impin, because people are going to do so much to try to out this card. And as long as you can protect him, more often than not, most decks cannot play. And even if they can, you are safe from an OTK, which is the other thing, because they're going to have to summon their guys in defense if they want to activate their effects. And they know that they really can't out this guy in battle naturally. He's really strong, because that's not a like once per turn. Let me go down to this and be specific. This is a once per battle. So he can battle, if your opponent declares an attack on him with multiple monsters, you can use his effect every battle, because it's once per battle and not once per turn. So every time he battles a monster, he can do that. Ryza is Ryza. Card is insane. There's some really cool plays you could do with this, need I mind you, because we're going to get really specific into why this card can also benefit you. Because you target a card on the field, right? And one card in either player's graveyard. So you can target, a second blah, 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 which you always do because you tribute a win. But you place the first target, which is the card on the field, into the deck. And then also the second target into the hand. So Ryza, we're going to get into what makes this card so broken in this deck. Because Ryza can target something that you need back onto your deck, and also can target a card in your own graveyard, and that can get returned to your hand, because the card in the grave is the second target, right? The first target goes to the deck, and then the second target in either player's graveyard gets returned to the hand. So you can use Ryza to recycle cards like Crossout Designator, Book of Moon, Imperm, you're one of called by. You can recycle anything. Ryza actually lets you recycle anything from your grave back to your hand. So you can even recycle a hand trap that you used on your opponent's turn. Use Ryza, add that hand trap back to your hand if it's a card like Valor or Imperm. Well, not Imperm, you can't really activate it because you control cards, but cards like Valor and other hand traps that are not once per turn, you can activate them again. So there's a lot of really cool kind of like flex plays that you can do with Ryza that makes him a very unique card in this deck. He's not just to disrupt your opponent. He both helps you and hurts your opponent at the same time. So this is arguably one of the best go-tos on your opponent's turn when you're going for disruptions. So just keep that in mind. This card was bought out for a reason, and there's a lot of, I wouldn't say big brain plays, because it should just be common sense. If you just read the card and do what it says, you can just add cards from your grave to your hand. You don't really need to think that hard about it, but it's something to point out because it does go over people's heads at time. And then Avian is Avian, just consistent negate every turn, summon it back, negate every turn, summon it back. And then Stormwinds. The only deck right now that's good, that can even have a chance against this, is Virtual Worlds. So against Virtual Worlds, it can be kind of hit or miss. I think Virtual World also has the best matchup against this deck, because not only can they play under Stormwinds, but they also have Qinglong or Kinglong to negate the Impin, and they have Chuchi. Chuchi and Qinglong paired with them being able to special summon Winds gives them the best matchup against this deck, because everything that this deck is good at is not always going to be enough to beat Virtual World. So that is still, for that reason, also is going to make Virtual World an even more sought after deck, because this deck's end all be all is not the end all be all for Virtual World. But continuing on, I played 3 crossouts. These could be hand traps. So crossout could be hand traps if you guys are just really scared. But like I told you guys, I designed my deck to be able to play through more. And I'm always like that when I'm building decks. I'd rather help myself than hurt my opponent. I want my deck to be able to play through the stuff that I know that it loses to. I always say this, and I sound like a broken record, but if you know your deck loses to something, you should build your deck to be able to beat that card consistently so that you're not just passing to an Ash when you play Prank Kids, and you're not just passing to an Imperm or a Veiler when you don't open map. So it's just really important, in my opinion, to build your deck so that it's not so fragile. Because even if I opened 3 or 4 hand traps, but my hand lost to a hand trap, I'm losing because now I don't have another play until I top deck. And if I don't top deck a play, all my hand traps are going to do is stall the inevitable. So in my opinion, I'd rather play cards that help me to beat hand traps than playing more hand traps in the first place. The only time when I really feel like I need them is if I play against Drytrons, and that's about it. And if you know that that's one of your worst matchups, your side deck is going to allocate a lot of slots for that in the first place. But yeah, cross out, and my targets are Veiler, Ash, and Imperm more often than not when I'm going to cross out something. Sometimes it is worth main decking cards like Droplets, just certain tech cards, stuff that you know can break your board. Even if you don't want to side them for going second, it's also worth noting that you can sideboard Twin Twisters or Cosmic, because like you can Twin Twisters the City of Dreams in standby, because this can only be activated in main phase, and you can really cut off a big play because your opponent could Twin Twisters map and also City of Dreams, and you really don't have anything to do unless you had disruptions you drew like tech cards, and if your Dogmatica stuff got you punishment, but outside of that, Twin Twisters pretty much beats this deck by itself. So it's worth noting that you would want to actually side deck, even if you were going first, you would want to side deck like one Twin, maybe one Lightning Storm, maybe one anything that breaks your board, one evenly matched, one anything that threatens you. That is also why I main deck cross out. Any Flunder list does not main deck cross out. Even if they get 3 more hand traps and they think that's good enough for them, they're going to consistently lose to side deck staples that they could be playing around just by playing this card. So I have validated my reason for not playing as many hand traps thoroughly, and you guys now understand why I don't. So that will answer a lot of questions and kind of reduce a lot of turbulence I might receive. People might say, oh, well, your deck's not consistent, or your deck's not competitive enough because you're not playing enough hand traps. But like, if you guys understand why people play cards, if you took the time to understand why people play cards, you wouldn't be so judgmental all the time. But continuing on, we also play Book of Moon for a very similar reason on why we play cross out. This is flexible. It's good in the mirror match. It's good against everything that is not Tri-Brigades. It's good against Dragon Link. It can hit their negates. It forces negates. This card's good against Eldritch. This card's good against everything. Like everything that's not Tri-Brigade. Book of Moon can force negates and also helps you to play through negates. Cards like Chi Shao, cards like Imperm, cards like Effect Veiler. Book of Moon's really good. Cards like even Droplets. Heck, if they Droplets and don't send a spell, you can chain book. It's like this card's very good. And then we also have 3 Imperm, and I could go on about what you can do with book. This is a really good card. This is one of the best decks to play it in. 3 Imperm. Imperm is like the 3 of hand trap of choice, because it's the only hand trap that you could draw going second into an established board and use it to force cards. So you can trade with your opponent with Imperm and book and other cards like your Nadir. And then also, like, when you get the if you get the Flunder engine on, they can really outboards. Like, and I'm gonna get into that soon. So called by is called by. I feel like these days you just really can't play a deck without called by. And then the one Veiler and the one Ash, you can draw these. These are hand traps, but they're mainly cross out targets, and that's one of the big things that I like about cross out is even if you main deck certain targets just so that you can cross out for them, if you draw them, it's not the end of the world because they are disruptions by themselves. And then Flundereeze and the Unknown Wind. This card is on crack. Like, something is wrong with this card. I don't know what they were thinking. This card is like a mulligan. It's like Cosmotown. And this card outs relevant cards like Dragoon. This is one of the best going second cards in this deck. This card, even if you just drew, like, sometimes you don't want to just draw England by itself, but even if you just drew England by itself with this card, you can out stuff. It's really good. Summon Impin, Tribute, Search, And then Mystic Mind, OP, Cancer, I know, but I want to win Yu-Gi-Oh games, right? And then we have Just One Punishment. If you need it again, you nadir dump Omega, and you pretty much add Ecclesia from grave, use Omega to recycle the punishment, and then you use Ecclesia to search it out again. And then I just play one copy of Dreams. Similar concept, you can banish this, and then you can use... This is why, I don't know why. I think some people just don't read cards, but you do not ever need to play more than one City of Dreams, because you can banish this, and then use the Toucan to get it back from the banish zone to the hand. How do you banish this 3 stacks? Have you read Stritch? It can target one card in either grave and banish it, and then you immediately get a normal summon. So you can banish your City of Dreams and then use Toucan to add it back. So you never have to play more than one City of Dreams. You can only use it once anyway, so it's not going to benefit you playing more if you're thinking you can activate multiple. So yeah, you guys, it's pretty crazy. Well, actually, the only use effect is actually the graveyard effect, so you can activate it more than once, but you're not going to do that because you already have other stuff that lets you tribute summon. So I should have been more specific, but yeah, you only need one Dreams, you only need one punishment. Everything in this deck can be recycled, whether it's through Omega or if it's just by banishing the Flunder cards and adding them back. This deck grinds like forever. The extra deck doesn't really matter, but we got Pharanjit, double Omen, these are like Nadir targets, double Elder, Pegasus, Omega. Omega is relevant. 2 copies of Promptush. This card is pretty cracked, you guys. This is a really, really good card. 1 Nightingale, and then also 1 Recital Starling. She's one of the best ones to summon. These really don't come up that often, but you play them because they matter. And when they do come up, it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. And I play double Downard and double Zeus. Like, this is like the only time you go into your extra deck is when you make Zeus. Other than that, this deck does what it does good, and it's just perfect the way it is. So, with that said, that is going to round up my FLUNDEREEZE deck profile. I know I can be long-winded sometimes when I do deck profiles, but it's for good reasons. And if I didn't care, I wouldn't say anything. I would just show you the list, cram it down your throat, and then just get it done. But I'm not that type of content creator. I hope you guys can appreciate that. Again, leave your feedback in the comment section on how I did. God bless you guys. Make good choices. Don't hurt your brain cells. And also stay tuned for future content and be safe. Peace.